Alright, welcome back guys for another DCS A-10C tutorial. Today we're going to be going over the HUD symbology. It's basically just a basic rundown of the HUD and its different bits of information, so you can be familiar with that sensor. I'm going to run down how to manipulate it with the different HOTAS commands and what everything means. Alright, so to start, this is our basic HUD in nav mode, which is the most common mode you'll be using. With most of the symbols displayed on the HUD currently. We'll start from the left-hand side and work our way right. On the very left top corner, you'll see a small square with numbers above and below. That is our current steer point marker. Currently, it is saying that we are 130 degrees worth of left turn, away from being on heading for our steer point. So basically, we'd have to turn 130 degrees to the left to be on heading with the steer point. And that current steer point is 59 miles away. And that obviously changes position relative to where the steer point is. Right now it's latched to the edge of the HUD, indicating that it's off to the left somewhere. If it was to the right of us somewhere, it would be latched to the right of the HUD, and etc., etc. If it was in front of us, it would be indicated somewhere in the view area of our HUD. So moving down the left-hand side column of information, the top decimal number up there is indicating our current G load. So currently we're sitting at 0.9 G, so we're just under the regular force of gravity, 1 times the force of gravity. You'll see that will also relate to our G accelerometer gauge up here. Currently it says we're sitting at 1 G. Obviously we're straight and level, so that is indicating correctly. Below that we have our indicated airspeed in knots, 258. Here we have, I believe that is going to be our indication for our laser marker, B for both, which I'll go over in the TGP tutorial, but it's basically indicating what we're using as far as our laser thing. So it's a quick at a glance, making sure we're using the correct thing. Just below that is a small asterisk. That is indicating our HUD is currently SOI, or sensor of interest. That will go away if we set any of our other sensors as sensor of interest. But because that is there now, that is telling us that the HUD is currently a sensor of interest. Below that we have our current autopilot mode, which is altitude heading. This is displayed when you have an altitude or an autopilot mode engaged. So if I disengage autopilot right now, you'll see that that goes away. And then if I change the autopilot mode to something different and then re-engage it, you'll see that it says something different. So we have altitude hold mode, we have altitude heading hold mode, and we have pitch hold mode, or path hold mode, excuse me. So that displays your 3 different autopilot modes when it is engaged. So we'll put it back into straight and level autopilot. And at the bottom, STPT is indicating we're currently in steer point navigation mode. Alright, and that pretty much covers the left-hand side information. In the center is our pitch ladder, or attitude ladder. This will indicate our current attitude relative to the horizon. Our horizontal line at the top of the screen here is our horizon line. That is indicative of the horizon surrounding the aircraft, obviously. So it is telling us where the horizon is. So if we're in inclement weather or low visibility conditions, we can always tell with the HUD where the horizon is and how it is oriented relative to us. Below and above the horizon line, we'll have gradiated pitch lines in gradations of 5 degrees. So below the pitch line would indicate a dive, and above the horizon line would indicate a climb. Currently we're flying straight and level, but if we were to maneuver, you will see this climb and descend to indicate our pitch. So currently we're 5 degrees nose down, and 5 degrees nose up. And the way we tell that is this symbol in the center of our HUD, which is the totem or tadpole, or excuse me, TVV or flight path marker. It's gonna basically indicate our aircraft's path through the air. So wherever that is where the aircraft is going. And you'll see that changes dynamically based on how we maneuver the aircraft. We also have another line coming out of it. That longer line that is moving around is always pointing at either our currently selected waypoint or our SPI. If our SPI is currently on our waypoint, it will always point to the waypoint because it's pointing at the SPI, and if the SPI is somewhere else, the line will point wherever that SPI is. So, you'll see as I maneuver here, the pitch ladder changes to stay level with the horizon. So we can tell we're in about a 45-degree left-hand bank right now. We roll it the other way, it changes accordingly as well. And we roll it back level, and become level with the horizon. So that's basically the pitch ladder. It's pretty straightforward. You'll see it's offset left and right. That mostly happens when there's some yaw input on the aircraft. Currently there's a nasty crosswind, and that's what's causing the offset. So let's see if I can get it either on a head or a tailwind here, so it's not so funky looking. That's a little bit better. Alright, we'll throw it back in autopilot. The last thing you can see here in the center is a small diamond. That is our TGP line of sight indicator. Currently, because we have the TGP bore-sighted and it's looking straight out in front of us, that is indicating the point in space where the TGP is looking. So it's not always there, but because it is bore-sighted and looking in front of us, it currently is there for us. Now, keep in mind that it is always somewhere, so that if you have it looking at the ground somewhere, and you turn your aircraft to point at it, you'll see that marker on the ground wherever that TGP is looking. So it's a good way to correlate, a point on the ground that you're looking at through your TGP to the actual physical point on the ground when you're looking outside the cockpit. So it's a handy little marker to have. On the very bottom, you'll see flashing note. Usually that means I have something that needs my attention. I think at this point it's probably indicating that that my Mavericks have been on too long, so let me unpause track IR and check that out real quick. What are we whining about? Yep, the Mavericks have been on too long. That's the only thing. So we can go ahead and acknowledge that, and that note indication will go away. So let's recenter track IR. Ugh, track IR is being weird. View of the HUD here, and we'll repause. Alrighty, so now that the node indication goes away, you can see that we have a heading tape down at the bottom of our HUD. And the heading tape indicates our current heading.
Warning, autopilot.
On the compass, obviously. So our heading right now is currently 040 degrees. Sorry, I'm trying to get this HUD in a decent position here. So, yeah, so the heading tape was really quick at a glance readout of our current heading. So now it's almost 060, 055. Pretty straightforward, and that'll change position relative to whatever master mode you have on, which I'll show you shortly here. On the right hand side of the HUD, on the top, we have, or top center, we have our altitude in feet. That's barometric altitude, not radar altitude. So this is going to be above mean sea level. Currently we're cruising along at about 10,000 feet. Below that we have, it's X'd out right now because we're so high up, but if we are lower to the ground, we have our radar altimeter readout. That's good for up to, I think, 10,000 feet, or just under 10,000 feet, accurate. And obviously that's height directly above ground. or AGL. Basically, it's just bouncing a radar off the ground and telling us how high we are. Below that is our steer point information. We have our steer point name and number. So steer point 1, its name is MSN000. Below that we have our range. We're 98 miles from the steer point, 98 nautical miles. And below that we have our time on target information. So we have roughly, at this current speed setting, if it was nothing was to change, and we were fly direct for the steer point, it would take us 18 minutes and 8 seconds to get there. Obviously that's currently, being updated in real time. Alright, so that pretty much covers the basic nav mode symbology of the HUD. I'm going to go through some of the other master modes and touch on the different indications briefly. There's a lot of different indications for different stuff in the different master modes, but I'm not going to cover them too heavily, and I'll leave that for individual weapons tutorials and the like. The one thing I do want to show you is how to manipulate stuff on your HUD. So before we move on, the different things we can do here is we have a TDC, or target designation cursor. You'll see that box slowly coming down here. I'm slowing it down right now. That's our TDC. It's basically how we can designate targets using the HUD. We slew it over any point on the ground, and it will stay stabilized on that point on the ground. You see it's slowly moving with the ground. And we can use it to set our speed or do various other tasks related to target acquisition. So it's handy if you're flying at directly at a target. You can just drop that little guy down on there, mark him, and have your other sensors look his way. So that's just controlled when the HUD is soy using the slew commands. And you can move him around as well via the China hat switch, like I just recentered him with China hat aft short. Other things you can do is using your DMS switch, you can alter different data functions on the HUD. DMS up and down with the HUD as soy will cycle through your currently selected steer points depending on your steer point mode. So right now we're currently in flight plan mode, which gives us only our current flight plan steer points, which is 0 through 6. If we were to change this to mission mode, which is done via the auxiliary avionics panel just after the CDU, which I'll show you now. Zoom out here shortly. Look down here, and we've got steer point switch. Currently on flight plan, so if we were to turn it to mission, we'll re-reference the HUD. If I can get my track bar to behave again. And you'll see that we have mission displays all of our flight plan steer points, so 0 through 6 again. And then you'll see it will jump to 51. And 51 through 70 or so are all the preset steer points, in this case, airfields available. We also have the bullseye at 2049. So that's the steer point at our currently set bullseye, which is currently 540 miles away. And so mission, you'll see, shows us all available steer points stored in the aircraft. There's one other setting, which is mark. And mark will display only the mark points that you have currently set. So if you were using your mark point with TMS right on any sensor, you'll be able to cycle through your multiple mark points. And they're automatically named alphabetically. So first mark point is A, B, C, blah blah blah. So that's how you access your mark points. And that's, again, DMS up and down to cycle through those with the HUD as soy. So we'll set this back to flight plan, and look at the HUD again, and pause tracker real quick. Alright, so that was DMS up and down. This manipulates your steer points. DMS left and right has a couple of different functions. On the when you're in nav mode, if you DMS left and right, actually if you're in any mode, it will switch you automatically. You will cycle through different weapons profiles. You're not necessarily cycling through the weapons themselves, you're cycling through their profiles. So whatever profiles you have set up in the Dismas, which is a tutorial that should be coming shortly. I'll go through that with you a little bit deeper in the Dismas tutorial. But know that you have profiles that have preset settings for each weapon. And with DMS left and right, we cycle through all of those profiles. So you see we're cycling through a profile for the Mark V rockets, a profile for the Mavericks, a profile for the GBU-12s, GBU-38s, now we're back to weapons off. And that was cycling through there on the left-hand screen, left-hand side of the HUD screen. So rockets, Mavericks, GBUs, weapons off. And you'll also notice that it is changing our master mode as we're cycling through there. CCIP, CCRP, etc., etc. And that's because in those profiles, those weapons profiles, there is a default master mode for each one. And whenever you switch to that profile, it will automatically change your master mode to that default master mode that's set in that profile. So we'll go ahead and set it back to nav. And you'll see that we can cycle through the different master modes independently. So the way we cycle through master modes is with the M key on the keyboard or the master mode switch on the stick. You just tap it and you'll cycle through the different master modes. So nav mode we have guns mode, and we have two drop or release modes. We have constantly computed impact point release mode and constantly computed release point mode. There's two different bombing solutions that you can use based on the weapons. The functionality is going to change slightly with different master modes. In CCIP, CCRP, and nav mode, DMS left and right, like I said, will cycle through all your weapons profiles. The big change is if you cycle to guns mode, you'll see that our symbology changes a little bit. Everything stays the same except you get a little bit more information. Starting on the left-hand side, we have CM/1150. That is our current ammunition type and ammunition count. So we currently have combat mix loaded, and we have 1,150 rounds, which is a full load of ammunition. Below that, you'll see that we are armed, and our GPS is aligned. So that's more for when we're using GPS-guided ordnance, that kind of thing, but it is basically telling us everything's ready to go. The other thing we have is a gun sight reticle, and with DMS right or left, we can cycle through 4 different types of gun sight reticles, and this is unique to guns mode only. So you'll see that we currently have gun sight reticle down here. It's a little messed up currently because we're so high. If we dive a little bit,
warning,
we'll get
autopilot.
a little bit more symbology. So there we go. So there's a gun sight. It's CCIP computed gun sight, so that where those dots are where the rounds are going to fall. The reason there's 2 dots is because we have combat mix, so we have 2 different types of ammunition and they have different ballistics. So one dot is going to be where the AP rounds land, and the other dot is going to be where the tracer rounds, or the incendiary rounds, I believe, is what the other rounds are in here. So 2 different types of ammo, 2 different types of impact points. You'll also see at the bottom a slant range to the target. So we're currently 5 nautical miles away from the target and closing. Once we get within 2 miles, the outside tape on this double circle will start to unwind. We'll dive down a little bit steeper to see that happen. Overspeed this bad boy here too. So we're getting close to being within range. So pretending that that's a target under our bullseye, you'll see that our tape is unwinding. We can shoot, and then pull out. and reset. So that's our guns mode. That's the CCIP gun sight pipper. If we DMS right again, we'll have a much neater little just gun cross. It's still computed CCIP for range and drop and all that happy stuff. Still gives us the slant range to the target. If we DMS right again, we have a fixed gun sight with multiple impact points for different ranges. I believe it's a 2, 4, and 6 1,000 meter range. Not entirely certain. I'd have to look that up for you. I'll throw it in the comments once I look it up here. But it's a fixed gun sight. It's handy for attacking targets that you know the range of, or that you're in close quarters with, where you need more of a just a straight shot to them, or where you can't get a CCIP solution with the computed cursors, like shooting uphill or at a weird angle or something like that. And if you DMS right one more time, you have just a neat gun cross fixed at 400 meters. Excuse me, 4,000 meters. Again, I'll look up the range for you. Alright, that basically covers guns mode. The other two modes are CCIP and CCRP. And these are unique modes, and they're very dependent on what particular weapon you have selected at the time. So you'll see we're in CCIP mode with the Mark V rocket selected. We have something very similar to our computed gun sight for the gun, but it's actually giving us our rocket's impact point. If we cycle over to Mavericks, we have no indication currently. So we don't have the Mavericks turned on, or we don't have the Mavericks readied up. You would get an indication of a Maverick Seeker head. Let's actually see if we can get this guy to come up. So we'll call him up on the MFD, and we'll bore sight him. There he comes. Alright, so you'll see we got the little wagon wheel style cursor there, dead in front of us. And with the Maverick set as soy, we'll be able to slew his targeting cursor around, so we can actually do a visual acquisition via the HUD right in front of us. It can be tough to do, but it's definitely possible. You can also look at your MFD down there on the right hand side and see where your Maverick is seen. And on the left hand side, you'll notice that we have a range queue for the current line of sight of the Maverick. So he's way out of range right now, but if we scroll down to ground that's closer in front of us, you'll see that that range queue comes up. So we're currently within firing range for this particular weapon. If we DMS right again, we've got to set HUD as soy. DMS right again, we'll pull up GBU-12s. It currently dumps us into CCIP mode. You see that big dashed line. Let's turn the Mavericks off. We see that big dashed line. CCIP mode is a computed impact point, so it's very much like a dive bombing site. You would roll into a dive on the target, and down on the bottom at the end of the line, which is off the bottom of the HUD right now, would show you where your bombs are going to land. And when that pipper was down over the target, you would pickle your bombs, and theoretically they would hit the target if you did everything right. So that's what that big dash line is, your projected bomb impact line. If we switch to GBU-38s, you see it dumps us into CCRP mode, and we don't get in any symbology. Our CCRP is invalid because we're low and because our target is 100 million miles away. If we had something closer and we were flying on heading, you would see something similar to the gun sight pipper with some triangles inside of it. Actually, let me just set a speed in front of us, that way we can see that cursor. or that targeting information. So there we go, set a speed. You see that the symbology is popped up for CCRP. So what we want to do is center that CCRP marker on the projected, or the azimuth steering line, which is that tall vertical line. And you'll see those two triangles moving around in the reticle. Once those triangles reach their designated spots, which is usually, it's dependent on range and altitude, but it's usually the 12 o'clock position, you'll see that the range or drop queue will start to unwind from in between those triangles. And once it's between those triangles, you're within parameters to drop. You see there it's unwinding. So if we dropped at any time while this was still between the triangles, we would probably get a hit with a GBU-38. Now we've passed drop parameters. And of course you also want to be flying as close to straight on line as you can. The bomb can correct for, you know, a bad drop, but only so much. Alright, so that basically covers most of the HUD symbology and functionality. The last thing there is the air-to-air mode. The way to access that is a long press on M, or a long press on your master mode switch on your stick. You'll notice that brings up air-to-air mode, and we have some different symbology going on here. Currently we have, on the left-hand side, down towards the bottom where our weapons information was now, we currently have our gun sight type set and our ammo count for the cannon. You'll also see at the top, our gun pipper, which is just a cross, and our basic gun sight lines as we progress through the air, showing us generally what's going on. We also have the Sidewinder Seeker Head line of sight, which is that circle at the top of the screen. You'll also hear it, its distinctive tone that it does when it's tracking, and it will change very dramatically when it's locked onto a heat source. That Seeker Head we can unlock and move around to, so we can salute around with the salute commands. It will drift around once we've saluted and go in weird places. At the tracks, you can re-bore sight it with China Hat aft short, just like you bore sight any other sensor. You can also put it in search mode with TMS up short, which scans around for a heat source in front of you. And TMS down short will put it back in bore sight mode. And if I had a heat source to lock onto out here, I would show you. Let's see if it'll do the sun. You might hear the tone change here if we get in line with the sun, but I'm not entirely certain why we have no sun anywhere. Anyways. So, you'll see, basically that's the Maverick, or excuse me, the Sidewinder Seeker Head. We would use to lock onto, you know, enemy aircraft and that kind of thing. We also have gun crosshairs on here. Currently we're just in a fixed manual mode, which is using that gun cross you see at the top center of the screen. If we were to TMS right or left, we would cycle through the different gun options, gun sight options. So currently we have selected a gun sight for an A-10, an F-15, a Su-25, the H-64, and then manual modes again. Now, you'll see that at the top there's a little funnel that appears, and you'll see that changes as I maneuver. The idea with the funnel is that you to match the width of the wings to the width of the funnel, and once the width of the wings match the width of the funnel, it's at the current and correct lead and range to shoot and hit with the gun. I don't really have anything to display that or demonstrate that on for you, but it's a pretty simple concept. You just put the thing in the funnel, and when the wingtips touch the outsides of the funnel, you shoot. And theoretically, you should get a hit if you're not doing crazy maneuvers. And you'll notice that changes as we cycle through different aircraft. We have some really basic aircraft on here right now. We can change that via the IFFCC. If you go down, I'm going to unpause track guy right here. If you go down to your IFFCC switch and you set it to test center mode, come back to the HUD here, you'll see that we're in the main menu of the IFFCC. We want to select AAS, so we go down to AAS. I believe that stands for air-to-air sighting. So scroll down with select keys and then hit enter. And you'll see that we have all these different aircrafts, and you see that the ones we have selected currently are highlighted with a little dot. So we can actually go and add and subtract other targets from this. So we have that symbology available. So we'll add the Russian jets, so MiG-29, Su-27, Mi-8 HIP, and we'll take off the American stuff, like the A-10, F-15, and the 64, and then we can just zoom this back out, pause again, turn IFCC back on to on, and you'll notice when I cycle through the HUD modes now, or the gun sight modes with DMS left and right, you'll see I've got Su-27, Su-25, got the Mi-8 HIP, MiG-29, so we can customize our gun sight that way. That's pretty much it for the HUD. Don't think there's too much more to cover. To get back out of air-to-air mode, you just tap your M key or your master mode button on the stick, and it'll pop you back into regular nav mode, or the last selected mode you had. So yeah, that basically covers it for the HUD. Hopefully that cleared up any questions you had about the HUD. If you have any more, please leave comments in the comment section of the video. If you like the video and you want to see more, definitely let me know. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that jazz you can hear me whine about every time. But yeah, it's really appreciated because I'm really enjoying making these videos for you guys. Let me know what you think, and have fun flying, and I'll see you guys in the